Joe Lycett, welcome to Homo Sapiens Hot Seat.
It is a delight to finally be here. We've been talking about it for months, I feel.
We have, but you've been a busy boy and I've just been warming your chair up to the optimum temperature.
Lovely. Well, it does feel very toasty. And it
And
is, I would say it is optimum.
You come to us live and direct from ground zero of Joe Lycett's art making
Yes.
den.
This is my latest painting behind me.
I love it.
I'm working on a few different, I've really got into extinct animals.
Okay.
So there's a swordfish that was around about 30 million years ago. And swordfish these days, I mean, did you expect it to start this way? Because here we are.
Here we are.
The swordfish these days have like the sword as the top bit of the jaw. And then the bottom bit of the jaw is just like not a sword. It's like a little lip, essentially. Whereas back in the day, this swordfish had two swords. The top and the bottom jaw was a sword, which must have been such a headache. Like if you like skewered something and then I think it's a design flaw. Hence they died out 30 million years ago. But I'm really fascinated by it. So I'm painting that and I'm going to put across it, see it, say it, swordfish.
So Joe.
Yes.
Here we are. Here's the big question of the week. Here we are. Why does everybody hate bi people? Jokey title, everybody, please.
They're annoying.
So
pick a side.
You identify as bisexual.
Yes, bisexual, pansexual, kind of, I don't care, basically. I think pansexual, I've always said, is the kind of intellectual way of describing it, because I've always felt that sexuality is complicated and not necessarily to do with gender or sex, but that it's to kind of do with the mood you're in and all sorts of different factors that you'll never understand. And so bisexual is the way that kind of everyone understands that. But I think pan, which means all, is more accurate, I suppose.
So we asked, do you feel left out by the LGBTQ plus community? 60% of you said yes, 40% of you said no. We said, have you felt characterized as greedy or overly sexualized? 80% of you said yes. Do you keep your bisexuality a secret? 60% of you said yes. Now, I think really interesting, because it's one of the few times we've put something on socials where I have received lots of messages that are like, this needs to be anonymous, or I'm going to message you separately, or this person was going to speak, but they don't want to speak anymore. Really interesting. Tell me how you react to that, Joe.
That all seems about like not right, but it seems that's not surprising to me. I suppose the only one that is the most surprising to me is the feeling left out by the LGBT community, because, I mean, the B is in there. It's the third letter. Third letter LGB. Yeah. It's the third letter. So I've always felt that, and particularly recently, that there is a real sense of inclusion of it. But I kind of get it in that it's weirdly, pretty much all the biphobia I ever had, less so these days because like the world's gone mad, but when I was sort of first emerging, it came from gay men, older gay men, who felt that they that I needed to pick a side, or I was on the road to being gay, or really, I think there was a frustration that, that generation, some of them had died in order for me to have the rights to be openly gay, bi, whatever. And for me to be a bit like, oh, well, I'm a bit of a sort of chameleon, I can be this, I can be that, is annoying to a kind of very openly gay man who can't hide or can't portray in different ways. And I kind of get that, but I do also feel like we've moved on. So that surprises me a bit. The being seen as greedy thing, I mean, I've never had that issue actually, but I'm also not that sexual a person. I'm not like constantly horny and like on the search for it. So I sort of I've not had that characterization because I don't operate like that. So like the people that are in my life know that I'm not sort of a sex addict or anything. They sort of, I think maybe they worry about me in the opposite way, really. That Joe just doesn't seem to give a shit about anything, really.
Never groped me once.
Yes, exactly. Then keeping it a secret, I can imagine those stats are probably way higher in the same way that, you know, lots of gay people probably keep it secret. You know, it's sort of, it's sort of context, isn't it? Like, I'm not sure that I'd be mentioning it in Morrison's, but I don't know if I'd be calling that, you know, keeping it a secret. It's just, it's not come up. But if I'm asked about it, I don't think I've ever lied about it. Like, well, no, since I came out, I don't think I've ever felt like I've needed to.
Yeah, we were talking about this. If you are in a situation where you're, imagine it's like it's a mini cab, and the driver is talking to you, and they haven't recognised you as Joe Lycett. Do you always correct them if they think you're straight, or do you know? Because sometimes it's just about like, I don't know if I have to identify the entire time.
Yeah. I'm just remembering this was quite a while ago. I was off to it was an anti-Trump protest, if I remember rightly, and I was in the cab on the way there, and the driver said to me, "I'm going to make sure I get this right. Oh yeah, but you know there is lots of stuff going on that is worrying, isn't it? You know they're saying in schools that it's okay to be gay," and I said, "Well, I'm bisexual, so I think that's fine." And he sort of suddenly sort of unravelled and went, "Oh, I didn't mean to offend you. It's just my religion." He was sort of saying that it was to do with his religion, and I was asking what the kind of rules were, and he said, "Well, you know that the bum's not meant for sex." And I said to him, "Oh, have you ever had a blowjob?" And he went, "Yeah," like really sort of proudly. And I said, "Well, the mouth's not really meant for sex, is it?" And he went quiet, and I went, "I'll see you in hell." And he liked that. And then I said, "Well, I've never had anything up my bum." And he went, "Oh, so you're a top." So he sort of knew the lingo.
Wow.
So it was just very interesting. But we kind of had a really lovely exchange, and it was very like harmless, really. And I think, like, I remember my granddad saying that if he knew any of his kids were going to be gay, he would have drowned them at birth. Which is such a kind of like, what, he invented time machine, and then like, so the whole thing was just sort of, he felt like it was the sort of thing he needed to say. And he wasn't like that at all. He wasn't like a nasty person. It was just like, that was what you did. And so I think there's so much of like just kind of muscle memory and a lot of homophobia, biphobia, all of that it's not actually, when people kind of really look at it, it's not what they actually truly believe, because most people just want to do the best and kind of let people be people and all that, in my experience. Obviously there's some horrible bastards out there, but I do find that the kind of the need to hide is not as relevant in like the Western world, in the UK, I feel, as it definitely is in a lot of other places. Do you know what I mean? Like I think you can get away with it in a lot more contexts than you used to be able to.
Can I read you a letter then that we've had?
Because, yes, please.
It actually, you're talking about, this is from a South Asian person, so it's really interesting that you brought up the sort of Western context.
Yes.
So Ramona wrote in. By the way, anyone whose name I'm saying, I've been allowed to say it. There's me going, so it's a secret, and then I read out.
Ramona's postcode is...
Yeah. Hey, so I don't exactly feel left out by the community, as I suppose I've not deeply tried to be a part of the lesbian, bisexual community, but I think that's because I've experienced not being quite accepted. I cannot tell you how terrifying it is walking into a lesbian bar to socialise, the fear of being rejected or nudged or judged. Judged. It's
nudged. God, the fear of being nudged.
Yeah, desperate. It's really silly, as from the age of 17, when I realised I was deaf bisexual, I'm now 49, I've always felt so ashamed for being bisexual. I come from a South Asian background and am second generation, which comes with added secrets and lies and homophobia from others. I'm pleased to say that isn't, I don't think it's like that anymore, but I was born in a harder era. And growing up, even in my 20s and 30s, I felt being bisexual was so taboo. You're greedy, you're on the road to being gay, you just don't know it yet, you're confused, you're a tease, etc. My experience with queer girls almost always comes with them having an air of suspicion about me. And straight boyfriends really boringly totally sexualized me, or on the other side of the coin, were terrified I would cheat on them or leave them for another girl, and were suspicious of all my female friends. As you can imagine, that's quite a lot. And now I still don't share my queerness openly, as it's trendy to be bisexual, or am I wrong? I'm not sure. I've known since I was a very young kid is the first thing I say in case anyone thinks I'm jumping on a bandwagon or I don't say anything through fear of being judged. My close family still don't know, and some of my closest girlfriends don't know, and it's through fear of me worrying they will think I'm in love with them, or that they are slightly judgmental that I am just jumping on the LGBTQ bandwagon. So there's a lot to unpack there. Have a great show. The young thing's interesting, isn't it? You know, that you sort of have to say, I've had it since I've been like that since I was young.
Yeah, that's proof. I just developed it right now. I've got a friend
in this meeting.
She has always been straight as far as I'm aware, and she always had male partners. And then she told me that just one night she was out with a friend of hers who she's been friends with for years, and they just somehow ended up in the toilet doing stuff. And she was sort of telling me in this sort of way, she was just sort of, I think, surprised in herself, and it was just a kind of complete kind of curveball for her. But at no point did she change her identity. I think if you asked her now, she'd say she was straight. At no point did she feel the need to kind of create a label as a result of it. She didn't seemingly toil with a kind of, oh, maybe I'm gay kind of question. It was just like a thing that happened. And I found that really refreshing, because I was like, that's it really, isn't it? Like, you just did something that was consensual and fun, and that's, who cares, basically. It was, between you two, and it was exciting and a thrill and all those things. And so I do, part of me is a bit on the kind of side of, you don't need to kind of get all of your ducks in a row with it and go, well, as a result of these experiences, this is exactly my identity, and let's get it on the card or whatever, because who knows, really. And I think it's it's spotting trends, isn't it? And kind of that's more of like how my sexuality works. So I think that's the idea that you've been like it from very young. I just remember when I was very young, like the dread of knowing that I was attracted to boys, that meant I was gay, and that was a bad thing, and that was it, really. Do you know what I mean? That sort of yeah. And one of the bits of stand-up that I've been trying to write about is that, like, my taste in women is very sort of diverse, I would say. I'm interested in different ages and body types and whatever. And my taste in men is just such like six-pack ugly face. that's it, and I'm really mortified by that, because I'd love to have a bit more of a kind of I don't know, an artistic palette for for men, but it is literally just like, oh, he's got a nice smooth six-pack.
I know. I always say, because the Instagram search page that sort of like reads your mind. I'm like, I am trash.
I'm a piece of shit. Yeah. I had this conversation. My partner, Denise, we call her in public. That's not her name. We were sat feeding our son, and I put some jazz on, and she just doesn't like jazz, which is fair enough. And she was like, oh, I just hate this. And I said something like, oh, do you want me to put some Sabrina Carpenter on for you? And she went, that I don't very much care for Sabrina Carpenter, apart from her recent stuff, which I do quite like. And I said something really horrible, like to my son, who we call the Punisher in public. I said something like, "Oh, your mum's being a basic bitch, basically, because she doesn't like jazz." And she said, "Your father's being a snob." And I was like, "But jazz, nuance and surprise and beauty and all of these things. What's wrong with that?" And she just turned to my son and she went, "Let me tell you about your dad's taste in men." It's just such a perfect little exchange. I had to like jot it down because I was like, that's so perfect of like our life, sort of. It's not that big a deal. She knows what I'm into. And we watched this advert that David Beckham was in, and she turned to me. We were in the cinema, and she went, "Did you find that confusing?" Because obviously I have history with David Beckham. I was like, "Yes, I found it very confusing because he is incredibly good looking in it." So we kind of, and her taste is so interesting to me because we'll watch a program. We were watching The Bear, and I was like, "Do you think he's hot?"
Jeremy Allen White.
Yes, and she went, "I don't know yet." And then there was a scene where he was a bit vulnerable, and she went, "Yeah, he's hot." And it's like there's obviously something completely different going on in the way that she analyzes whether someone is attractive or not to me, which is so sort of aesthetic and physical.
Yes.
And hers is so much more about the person and, as I say, like a bit of kind of vulnerability and a bit of like humanness. Whereas I'm just like, where's the meat? It's like it's so basic.
It's like that whole thing of like id and superego, and like id is sort of your animal instincts, and superego is like why we are a vaguely working society, because controls things, and it's like the like mate thing is just your id, isn't it? And being like, I want that. But it's really, I always found when I ended up sleeping with people like that the next day, I was always like, oh God, I could not do this. I needed, and I needed more nuance. You know what I mean? Actually, they just thought I was completely strange. I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
They would always think I was. But how? So, if you don't mind talking about Denise, does she identify as straight? How does she feel being with a bi man or pan man? Sorry.
We don't talk about it loads, but I think she identifies as straight. I'm fairly sure. But she, I don't think she cares. I truly don't think it sort of is on her radar really, and it's not because I know in the past there's sort of been people that I've kind of had sort of short relationships with who have basically have been like, "Oh, but you're kind of interested in other stuff," and I always sort of thought that was quite dumb as a thing to say, because straight men or women don't immediately stop finding other people attractive when they're in a monogamous relationship. It's not like that.
Totally.
I don't know if that's what people are expecting to happen, is that's just sort of there's some sort of brain thing that's cut and you never find other people attractive. Like that is impossible to avoid. But love gets in the way. Do you know what I mean? Love stops those things from kind of happening, and love is the kind of is the more powerful force, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't think it sort of affects her particularly. I don't think she worries about it. I'm sure lots of people kind of talk about it behind our backs and kind of this. Well, I think that was what the interest was when The Punisher was born, is that I think the Daily Mail were sort of desperate to know that I was still doing gay stuff and I was hiding it, and then that, they could expose me as a sort of a cheat. But there's no time to have an affair when you've got a 1-year-old. Maybe when he's older, I'll have a good go at that. But right now,
but there is a death of sexuality that comes with having children, which is
death.
But it is also, I fundamentally understand it. It's like, it's not about that right now.
No. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Let's make that. And I don't think that's defeatist. I think it's like, let's make stability, because I was very lucky to have had stability.
Yes. Yeah,
and
exactly.
And I don't think we need to explain to a 1 and a 3-year-old daddy and daddy's open relationships in my household. Do you know what I mean? Like, yes, there will be some guys coming through, but like, it's like they don't understand that. They don't
No.
need to understand that.
No.
I don't know. Am I sounding like someone on GB News? Don't know.
I think it's the thing that I was reading about parenting, which I agreed with, is that you should, with your children, by and large, be saying the same thing for the next 30 years. And you should be boring to them, because they need to know that that they're going to get something consistent, essentially. So that is essentially going to be my approach, is to be a boring dad, that by and large, you know where I will be and what I will roughly say to any kind of question. But if you're the sort of person that is in an open relationship, then you just have to make that the boring thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's your, on a Sunday, Daddy goes to suck off a load of men. Maybe, I don't know. I actually don't know practically how that works, but I'm sure people make it work. So
I think well, if you do, write in hello@homosexualspodcast.com. How are you making your throuple work with young kids?
Yeah,
that's what we want. That's what we want to know.
Yes, exactly.
I had another question.
Actually, a throuple. Thinking about it, it's another pair of hands, isn't it? So it's really.
That is exactly what James Greenwood said to me. James, who's also co-hosting this series, he was like, "Throuple's actually a great idea because really frees it up for childcare."
It does. Oh my God, we might be onto something there.
Yes.
It was lovely to see. Lovely isn't the word, but it was heartening to see people saying, like this one, we are not seen as part of the community if with an opposite gender partner. And I think that's not been expressed to me, but I think it's an internal thing where I feel like I can't engage in the conversation anymore because I've been extracted in some way. And that by being like, I think if I was a fully paid up gay person, I would have more license to kind of comment on LGBT rights and LGBT politics and all of these things. Whereas now I sort of, I suppose what it is it's a form of privilege that, like, I kind of have to acknowledge that my life, now clicks into all the things that, straight couples benefit from that a kind of gay couple or a solo gay person wouldn't have. So I think it's like, I feel, I don't know, maybe there's a sort of, I feel rich. I've kind of become, less of a problem to society, maybe.
Well, but I think you should do away with that fear because for two reasons. One is, it's so interesting to hear because what you're saying is what loads of people are saying, that you say, I don't have a right to speak up about, and then you say LGBT rights. Literally, B is in there.
Yes.
It's so interesting.
Yeah, and has been forever.
Yeah, and if you think about, oh my God, what's she called from Bridgerton, Nicola thingy, Coughlan.
Yeah.
She's straight, right? But she makes it not her whole thing, but she does loads of stuff for LGBT rights. No one has a go at her because actually people aren't going to get rights unless people outside of those letters come in behind and support,
Yeah.
And I think what's in that is a fear of biphobia. If anyone reacts, they're being biphobic, and we've got to tackle that head on. And yeah, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I don't think I experience biphobia at all. You know what I mean? Like,
but isn't it biphobia that is stopping you contributing in the way that you used to?
Yes. So I experience it from myself, but like in the outside world, the queer people I interact with, all of that, I don't think I get anything from them. I don't think I'm treated any differently.
Check your general folder and DMs.
Yeah. I'm sure there's bits of that. Yeah. Yes, of course.
So that was what I was going to ask you. Sorry. Do you think that it's partly to do with one thing that lots of people are talking about is this, like, people you're with being suspicious of you as a bi person, and you said that because you have other interests. Was someone said that to you? You have other interests. But I'm fascinated. 2 points. One is when you're lying in bed with someone, that the person opposite you has other interests, i.e., you're not every. I'm not explaining this very well. They fancy if they're straight, they fancy other women too. You know what I mean? Like it's not like just because you fancy men as well doesn't mean that you. I don't get how that makes you more of a risk. It's like
yes, exactly. That was my whole point. Is like,
but
unless if you eradicated all men, then I would have a similar playing field to a straight man. Do you know what I mean? As in, like, I would only be able to sleep with women,
and
but that's still loads of people. Do you know what I mean? So that's.
If I'm looking for other options, I can find.
I'll
them within
find
one
one.
gender.
Yeah. So that's that. It's a weird trust thing that.
Because someone wrote in and said, always have felt left out. Practically criminalized by women. This is a man saying this. Practically criminalized by women unless it's their kink.
Oh. Yeah. Oh. No, I've not experienced that. I mean, the women that I've been with pre-Denise have all been sort of chill about the thing. Oh, well, obviously, because otherwise they wouldn't have come to me, I suppose.
Yeah, it's
that. But I can see that some women are into it. There was, and I suppose the flip side as well is like bisexual women. And that does come up in some of the feedback, is that like a lot of bisexual women feel that that's a massive kink from men, so they sort of hide it so that men don't kind of suggest it, I suppose.
because they love a threesome.
Because they love a threesome. There was an article I read about this a long time ago, which suggested that it's quite rare for women to be interested in gay men sexually, but it's very common for men to be interested in gay women. And that it's to do with this sort of sense that women, some men feel that women, it's a bit of a kind of incel sort of view of women, but that women aren't sexual, particularly that they need to be sort of be persuaded to have sex, and generally they don't want to have sex. So that then when you see two women who are having sex with one another and no man is involved, it's a kind of titillating, tantalizing thing of going like, oh, they have a sexuality, so they do want to have sex, which is so exciting to men because they think that women don't want to have sex. I'm not sure if I entirely agree with that, but I thought it was an interesting theory, because there are a lot of men who, as I say, like the incel community, who sort of go, well, women don't want to come near any men. I'm like, well, it might be you, actually. You might be the common factor here.
Yes. It's interesting. It makes sense because it is so different, the reaction, isn't it? There's something deeply unmale about two men having sex. There's something incredibly female about two women having sex. For want of a better description.
Yes, it's sort of
not in my opinion,
sensual.
But
yes, in like the old-fashioned view of it. Well, this is one thing that I kind of want to sort of not the sex side of it, but like I want to the queer part of me wants to sort of bring into parenting is that masculinity comes in very kind of different forms, and that it can be very masculine to be soft and gentle and calm and all of that, and that's a masculine thing to me.
Totally, because you're in control, which is
exactly. Yes,
a classic sort of thing. I found it really hard, like, because by the way, when I said in control, I mean it's perceived as masculinity. I'm not saying therefore I'm not being an incel. But I find it really interesting how books and TV shows and everything is about a princess being rescued by a prince in the kids' TV and all that, and it's like, and I don't really police it. Like I just kind of I also just bring in other stories to the mix, and try and find some really good ones that just show the balance. But it is interesting, all this stuff, the root of this stuff that we're talking about here today, about people wanting people to be one way or another is because that's how it's displayed from the word go. You open those little books and it's like, well, it's straightness as well, isn't it?
Yes.
And shall I read a message from Thomas, or do you want to read it? I mean, there's actually a bit of
I
it
will
that's
read
for
it.
you.
Where is it now? Is this the...
Okay, so page 2, and it's
Yes,
a black
yes.
box. Can you see?
Yeah.
See if you want to read the second bit.
Yes, I'll read the second bit.
Well, no, you read the first bit, and then the second bit, he's also now there's a message
gushing
to you.
about me.
Yeah.
I did enjoy that.
Oh, good.
I'm not bisexual, but I do often think of bi erasure as their sexual identity can be forgotten when they get in a relationship. I do love hearing stories where a partner honours their opposite sex partner's bisexual identity by going to Pride with them. Anyway, look forward to this episode and always love Nick from Heartstopper's catchphrase, I'm bi, actually. Also, just heard that this will be on a Joe Lycett. This will be on a Joe Lycett.
Yeah.
And thought this would be up his street. I would love for the LGBT plus community to prank the right-wing fascists that have been putting flags on lampposts lately. We need to organise the LGBT community to descend on a town in the dead of night and replace all the St. George crosses and Union flags with pride flags. Come on, Joe, make it happen. That has not passed me by, that idea, actually. I did think like that would be quite fun. I don't think I'd get rid of the other flags. I think I'd just add to them, basically.
Great.
So, everyone's represented.
Lovely.
You're not taking anything away, and it's up to them if they'd like to take something away, because that's making more of a point, I feel. That's how I'd approach it.
I love that.
Here's a question. I've been asking audiences this.
Yeah.
If you had to shag a flag, what flag are you shagging?
Oh, that's so interesting.
There's a lot of flags out there, and like some of them have got like AK-47s on them. So
I immediately went to like Danish.
The Danish flag. I need to remind myself of that.
Because it doesn't feel particularly patriotic. So I'm quite turned off by patriotic flags.
Yeah.
And I think it's quite kind of...
It's a lovely flag, that, isn't it? What a lovely flag.
Very chic. Yeah,
very chic.
It would text you afterwards and say, thanks for that.
Yeah.
I'm
Japan.
You got home again. Are you?
It's a red hole
in it. Yeah.
You know what you're doing. You know where you're going.
What have been other big ones you've had feedback on?
What, on flags?
Yeah.
Well, the European Union looks a bit sort of spiky cock ring.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Wales has a dragon on it, which is a kind of niche kink, but I think there's a sort of people into sort of tentacle porn and all that stuff. So yeah. I think some people like the dragon side of things. That's basically as far as I've got with that bit of stand-up.
Well, good.
Really?
I'm going to call it. It's finished, actually.
Yeah, finished,
it's
done.
Complete.
Just steering back on Thomas's first message. So that's one thing that Denise... So I run this Pride with a lot of other people who actually do all the hard work, and I take the glory. But there's a Pride that I've been running for 5 years now in King's Heath, which we turn into Queen's Heath for the weekend.
Beautiful.
And Denise has always come to it and brought the Punisher last year to it. And it was just so lovely to have him at Pride and for us to be there as a family. But it did feel ever so slightly like I was sort of gate crashing a party I wasn't allowed at anymore, even though I run the thing. Do you know? It was like I was like,
Yes.
But I also wonder whether that will just come with age. Like I sort of wonder, like a lot of Pride stuff is a sort of a young man's game, and that like increasingly, like as I get older, I just sort of a lot of the kind of there's a thing that the barber turns into a sort of New York dungeons sort of sexy party sort of thing, and the guy who runs it, he DJs. He calls it the abattoir, and he said at one point that it was so full of like sweaty bodies that it was like DJing to a room full of eels. That's what he said. It was like just lots of slippery people. And I used to love going into the abattoir, but I sort of now, like, one, it's hard to get into because it's so tiny and it's always packed. But also,
Trying to give a kid a rice cake in a sweaty room.
Exactly. That's the
Bloody
thing. Like,
nightmare.
he was there in his pram, and I'm like, I'm not going to try and get a pram into this sort of, sexy party with very loud music. So I think there's things like that where, like, just naturally, I'm not going to be engaging in those things as much. But that's not just queer stuff. That's just loads of stuff in my life that has sort of taken a backseat since having
Well,
a
also
baby.
and also we as queer people tend to meet in nightlife spaces. You know what I
Yes.
mean? So
Yeah.
that's why. So therefore, you're taking your child to a nightlife space to be with your queer people.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
actually, that's quite unusual, or that's specific
Yeah.
to queer people. And I think that's part of it. You want to do a friends and family corner. Not
Yes.
friends and family. Sorry, family.
I think one thing as well, actually, and just as you were talking then, that I think there's a bit of it might be genuine, but I think it might be slightly sort of put on within certain areas of the queer community, that like kids are like boring, or and I was guilty of this because I did write stand up about my friends' kids back in the day. Which never really, I never managed to get the routine going, so it didn't really make it to much to a show, I don't think. But I used to enjoy. I had a joke about when friends had kids and they were having sleepless nights, and I would say to them, "It'll all be worth it when they're softly stroking your hair as you slip into oblivion." And that now, I'm actually not looking forward to it, but I'm really grateful that there's potentially going to be somebody softly stroking my hair as I slip into oblivion. So I win. But I think I have seen a sort of eye roll from some queer people when children are nearby, and this sort of sense that they're irritating. And I find there's an irony in it, because the behaviour of those queer people is almost entirely worse than anything I've seen a child do. Sometimes the way they behave, like, particularly after a bit of cocaine, there's a few queer people that do appalling things. So
kids are terrible on cocaine, though. But do you know, it's really, I've had it where I don't know if you've had. I've had it where people have gone. I've gone to show a photo of my baby, and people are like, all babies look the same to me.
Yes, yeah.
And it's like, okay,
but I get that, because they probably feel excluded from the joy of having a child and all of that, and so they create a barrier. And I do sort of get it. And I also know that the stats about having kids, like, it doesn't guarantee you a happier life. They've done studies, and basically your chance of being happy is exactly the same whether you have children or not. So it's not but I do know that, like, access to children, in terms of like having a family and whatever, is access to children is not a sentence that that sounded wrong. But having access to a family and being able to have children and raise for all sorts of reasons, is not not open to everyone. And
yes.
And I think if it's not open to you, one way of coping with that is to go, oh God, So I do get it. I get it. But it's just I've experienced it a little bit more recently, obviously, because I've had a child. And I was like, oh, I'd love to pass the baby round all of the drag queens, but some of them don't want to be near him.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And also, like, it's, sounds trite and all the rest of it, but you do fall in love with your kid, and other people's children are still boring. You know what I mean? You're like,
well, yes, but also what I have noticed is that the comparison I used was for dogs. I never really got dogs, and I didn't like them because I sort of thought when they barked, they wanted me dead. And so I didn't have a kind of emotional connection or understanding about dogs. And then a friend of mine got a dog, and I just loved it and was playing with it as a puppy, and then watched it grow, and then learnt the kind of nuances of how they communicate, and that barks mean all sorts of different things. And you can kind of get a sense of what a dog means in any scenario. Now, I love dogs, and I've definitely had the same experience with babies, that I was so like, I just did not understand why anyone would want to have one in any way.
Yes.
And then as my friends started to have them, and I started to be around them a little bit, I went, oh, okay. And then just the curiosity before the Punisher was born was just off the charts. And now I can't believe how obsessed I am with him, and how much that grows. And, you know, day one, I was like overwhelmed with the love. But now I love him more than I did then. And I don't really see how that's possible. And I don't know how to quantify it. I just know that there's like a kind of, it's growing and it's sort of, it's like a kind of a wine kind of building flavor. It's like just this, like every day you're like, "Fuck." And like right now I feel guilty that I'm not with him because I should be with him at all times. But, you know, he would wriggle away and want to go and, you know, slam his hands onto a bit of glass somewhere because that's his favorite thing to do. So yes, it is like, it doesn't, none of it really matters because I do just think, well, I've got this thing over here that I'm obsessed with. And so if somebody doesn't like babies or whatever, fine, that's up to them. I'm obsessed with this one. And so I'll just be over there hanging out with him, basically.
Yeah, totally. And they're not babies for long. They're people. You know what I mean? So you don't have a baby, you have a person. But people talk about the baby moment. And it's like, it's actually just like a person. It's like having a new friend live with you. And I love it.
Yeah. There's a little man in my house who demands yogurt.
Yeah, they come and bang on your door and like, hi! And you're like, hi!
Yeah.
It's so cool. I love it. Listeners, you got to write in hello@homosapienspodcast.com, at homosapiens on Instagram. Get in touch. Tell us what you liked, what you didn't like. Also, you've got to watch this on YouTube at Homo Sapiens Pod. You've got to, if you want to win a bit of Helen, Jessie Ware's sourdough, you've got to go to Apple Podcasts and review, and then we're going to pick a winner. Are you a sourdough maker, Joe?
I tried in lockdown, didn't ever quite get the kind of loaf I was after. And I was gifted a bread maker for my birthday this year. So I just whack it in the bread maker and don't think about it again.
Chuck it. So that's that. And then I can't remember what else I'm supposed to say at the end. All I'm going to say is goodbye and thank you. And thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much. Have a lovely rest of your day.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.